Okay, so you want to own a small business. Maybe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's a landscaping company, maybe it's a little boutique gym with your name on the sign out front. You picture the ribbon cutting. You picture regulars who know your order. You picture being your own boss, setting your own hours, finally answering to no one but yourself. Sounds simple. It is not simple. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how small business ownership really works financially, the real costs, the real income, the real risks, and whether it's actually worth it. Let's start with what it actually takes to get in the door. Most people assume small business means small money. It doesn't. A modest independent business, a salon, a small retail shop, a service franchise, typically requires somewhere between $50,000 and $250,000 just to open the doors, and that's before you've made a single dollar. Buy an existing business instead of starting fresh, and you're often looking at 1 to 3 times its annual profit, which can easily land in the $150,000 to $500,000 range depending on the industry. Here's the trap that catches new owners off guard. The cheap option is almost never actually cheap. A business listed well below market value usually has a reason: outdated equipment, a lease about to expire, a customer base that's aging out, or an owner who's been quietly propping up the numbers with unpaid personal labor. Read that again. When something looks like a bargain, you're not saving money. You're inheriting a problem at a discount. So how does a small business actually make money once you're in it? It's not one number. It's layers. Layer 1 is gross revenue, the top line sales. A well-run local business might pull in $300,000 to $1,200,000 a year depending on the industry, but this number is almost meaningless on its own, because revenue isn't profit. It's just the noise before the signal. Layer 2 is gross margin, what's left after the direct cost of goods or services. Here's the counterintuitive part. Businesses with the highest revenue often have the thinnest margins. A restaurant doing $1 million a year might keep only 3 to 5 cents of every dollar as actual profit, while a small consulting or service business doing a quarter of that revenue might keep 20 to 30 cents. The biggest number on the sign is not the biggest number in the bank. Layer 3 is fixed overhead, rent, insurance, software, utilities, the costs that show up whether you sell one item or 1,000. This is where owners get squeezed, because fixed costs don't scale down in a slow month, they just sit there, waiting. Layer 4 is labor, and here's where it gets interesting. In most small businesses, the largest recurring expense isn't the owner's salary, it's everyone else's. Payroll, taxes, benefits, and turnover costs routinely eat 25 to 45% of revenue. Think of it like a garden hose. Revenue flows in at full pressure, but by the time it reaches the owner at the end, half the water's already leaked out along the way. Layer 5 is owner's discretionary earnings, what's actually left for the person who took all the risks. In a healthy small business, this typically lands somewhere between 10 and 20% of revenue. On a $500,000 business, that's $50,000 to $100,000 a year, before taxes, and before you've paid yourself for the 60-hour weeks. Now the hidden costs, the ones that never make it into the glossy pitch. First, equipment and maintenance. Things break and they break on their own schedule, not yours. Second, compliance, licenses, insurance premiums, and regulatory changes that can shift overnight and cost thousands to address. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about enough, opportunity cost. The hours you spend running the business are hours you're not spending anywhere else, and small business owners routinely underpay themselves relative to what they'd earn working for someone else. And here's the structural risk that can cascade. A single bad month, a slow season, a key employee quitting, a piece of equipment failing, doesn't just cost you that month's profit, it can force you to draw down savings, which delays a needed repair, which hurts customer experience, which slows the next month's revenue too. One weak link doesn't just break, it pulls the next one down with it. Let's ground this with a quick case study. Picture a couple who buys a small independent bakery for around $200,000, funded partly by savings and partly by a loan. The first year goes well, steady local demand, low overhead, a loyal customer base. Then a national chain opens 2 blocks away, undercutting prices while the bakery's rent renews at a 20% increase. Within 18 months, margins that were once healthy are cut in half, and the owners are working more hours for less money than when they started. The business survives, but barely, and the lesson is blunt. It's never the big obvious threats that get you, it's the 2 or 3 small shifts happening at the same time. So, what does the range actually look like year to year? In a good year, a small business generating $600,000 in revenue, with disciplined cost control, might net $90,000 to $120,000 in owner earnings, a real, livable, even attractive income. In a bad year, a downturn, a key hire lost, a supply cost spike, that same business might net $10,000 to $20,000, or post a loss entirely, even though revenue barely moved. The gap between a good year and a bad year isn't small. It's the difference between thriving and just surviving, and most owners will experience both within the same decade. So, what does the range actually look like year to year? In a good year, a small business generating $600,000 in revenue with disciplined cost control might net $90,000 to $120,000 in owner earnings, a real, livable, even attractive income. So, why do people keep doing this, knowing all of that? Because the math on paper isn't the whole story. Small business ownership carries tax advantages that employees simply don't get: deductions on vehicles, home offices, equipment depreciation, and retirement contributions that can meaningfully lower the effective tax burden. There's also equity. Unlike a salary, a business is an asset that can appreciate and eventually be sold, sometimes for several times its annual profit. And there's something harder to put a number on: control. The ability to build something, shape it, and eventually hand it off or sell it on your own terms is worth more to some people than a bigger paycheck with someone else's name on the door. In the end, owning a small business isn't really about the ribbon cutting or the regulars who know your order. It's about accepting a trade, steady income for uncertain income, safety for control, and betting that the version of your life on the other side of that trade is one worth having. Some people take that bet and lose the shirt off their back. Others take it and build the only kind of wealth that was ever going to feel like theirs. The business doesn't decide which one you become. The spreadsheet does that long before the ribbon ever gets cut.